Hi, I'm Alan Ross. I'm here at the IEEE PES T&D, that's a lot of acronyms, conference. This is the 2020 version that is actually being held in 2022. These interviews that we're conducting is with thought leaders on the future of the power industry. So enjoy. So our guest for this segment is Steve Gunn. Steve is the president of the Gunn Company, a third generation company. I've just had a fascinating talk with him about it, and we're going to get into it a little more. Steve, thank you so much
Alan,
for joining us.
thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
So let's first of all, before we talk about the company, let's talk about the industry.
Sure.
What are some of the big trends or changes or things that are happening in the industry that haven't happened before? There's a lot going on right now.
There is. It's a very interesting time. And I would say one thing that a lot of people are missing is that we've had a tremendous amount of growth for the electrical industry in recent years. So we went through a period between roughly 2008 and 2018 where industry growth really slowed down. And if you looked at the core electrical industry and you looked at the NAICS, or the old Harmonized Tariff Code classification for core electrical equipment, you would find that between 2008 and 2018, the rate of growth was less than 1% a year.
Really?
And since 2018, and as far as we can see, we're in the range of 3.5%.
Right.
So you're talking about, in just recent years, you've got 4 times the amount of growth on an annualized basis that we saw versus the previous 10 years.
Yeah.
So that is a lot of industry growth, and theoretically, we have a lot more growth ahead of us. So it's going to be nice to have some tailwind behind the industry and seeing a little healthy growth.
So one of the ways of growth, I mean, we've been flat, demand curve for power, for energy has been pretty flat.
Right.
Predictions are because of EVs adoption, because of there's a lot of data centers that are moving from offshore to here.
Of course.
Bitcoin mining is not much China, it's here, it takes a lot of power. The demand curve is anywhere from 30% to 100% higher in the next decade.
Yes.
That's going to bring a tremendous amount of additional change. Talk about where your perception of where that's going is.
Well, it's really interesting. You bring up some interesting statistics. Another one is that between 1980 and 2010, that 30-year period, our electrical generation doubled.
Right.
Okay. So if you listen to someone like Elon Musk, who is, of course, tied to the EV industry and claims that we're at 2% adoption right now for electrical vehicles in North America. And theoretically, we need to double electrical power generation to even get to 80% electrification. That is a tremendous amount of growth. And if GM says their full product line by 2035 is going to be fully electric, if that happens, quite simply, our electrical infrastructure is not prepared for it today.
Yeah.
And the FERC just came out with a report yesterday indicating that they're going to direct utilities in the US to require them to start planning infrastructure grade upgrades for the electrification of the car. So we're planning to plan to build this infrastructure, which frankly, with 12% growth in the last year for that core electrical industry output, which has been amazing growth.
Right.
But you talk to any manufacturer here at the IEEE show, and they'll tell you they're largely out of capacity right now.
Right, exactly.
And so if you think about global trends and you think about what has happened from an outsourcing of manufacturing from the United States, starting in roughly the 90s, that all that offshoring has removed so much manufacturing capacity that 1 year of 12% growth has most manufacturers sold out. Now that is an industry challenge.
And as we bring, let's call it heavy industry, manufacturing back into this, you know what manufacturing takes? Power. So now you got electrification of transportation, the data center. I'm on the 100% curve. I think this is going to double in the next 10 to 15 years, the demand of power. Now, some people say, oh, we have enough excess generation, but we don't have a system that's able to handle that generation.
That's correct.
So the whole grid edge part of the thing, I'm a member of the Grid Edge Steering Committee, which is a conference we're putting on in April of next year. It's designed to be as big as this. PES is putting it on as Grid Edge, IEEE Grid Edge. And it's partly because we're not ready for that. The government is going to put a lot of money into the pie, right?
I sure hope
infrastructure bill is going to do that. And a lot of it can be wasted if we don't have a plan for how best to use that.
That's right. And we require leadership.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, our country, for better or for worse, it is what it is, but unlike many countries, we don't have one national power utility.
Right.
We have thousands of local power utilities, which is fine. But to get everyone to share standards and interconnect their networks is a big challenge, of course.
Interoperability, you just did it.
Yes.
Talk to me about how that's going to change the industry as a whole.
Well, one thing is the U.S. market is extremely fragmented, and so each utility with its own designs and its own specifications for what it wants out of its electrical equipment means that there's a lot of customization of equipment.
Right.
And for us as a manufacturer of components, we manufacture electrical insulation components that go into power generators, transformers, switchgear. That means we must be prepared to provide customized design services to support the customization needed by the equipment manufacturers to support the utilities. And so that is a big challenge. And as we talk about supply chains that have been globalized,
right,
as we come back and require localization to have the lead times necessary to support customization, the industry is going to face a big challenge, and that is that localization of manufacturing capacity could be an absolutely wonderful thing for the U.S. economy, but it's a big challenge.
It's going to be a big change because we got hooked on just in time.
We did.
We got hooked on manufacturing overseas. So people say, well, why can't we just manufacture chips over here? Guess what? Setting up a chip manufacturing facility is not a one-year deal.
That's correct.
I mean, you got a lot of people, you got a lot of, you mentioned something because we've talked about supply chain issues. There is another supply chain issue. It's called labor.
Of course.
How is your labor situation and how do you see it going forward?
Well, the big challenge from a labor availability perspective is we're of course dealing in a 3% unemployment environment.
Right.
So to attract labor, you really have to work on culture. And our company, thankfully, has always been a family business with a culture of one family. So we are a family of families.
Right.
And we take that approach of take care of each other as one of our, and really it is our most important guiding principle. What does that mean? We're a 30% ESOP. So we're a 30% employee-owned company.
Right.
Our family decided to share the ownership of our company with our employees, knowing that it was consistent with our cultural values.
Right.
So if we live our cultural values as a family and take care of our people as family, then we can attract talent.
Right.
And that ability to attract talent and limit turnover allows us to be consistent in how we take care of customers.
I think the government's rules and regulations around ESOPs were designed to support the owners to get money out in a tax safe environment.
That's right.
But I really think it was designed to do just that, to get employees part of the company. And it is. Of course. You hear a few horror stories about ESOPs, but for the most part, they work and they work well. So
it's really worked well for us, and it's really ESOPs are governed based on ERISA rules. So it's like a 401k or an IRA program. But it's designed to provide retirement savings for our employees. And they don't pay in anything. It's not like a 401k and we're providing them a match. This is a 100% gift to our employees. And it's a pretty powerful motivator to be able to tell our team members that they are owners of the company and their decisions and their productivity and efficiency and the way they take care of customers allows us to take care of the business and have a safe and secure business model for the long term.
So I've already loved what you've said about the gun company. I love the third generation and your grandfather and Busman. Now I love it even more because I think that's one of the things that, I mean, you're going to have a much higher retention of employees because they're not just employees, they're owners.
That's right.
And that next generation wants to know they're part of something. You know, we say that the next generation, whatever they're called, wires, that they don't know what they want to do. They want to be part of something that matters.
That's right.
And that kind of matters to them. Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit because now I do want to go to your company. You see all this future. You see 3 generations. Where are you going in the future? What are you doing to meet the changes that are taking place?
Well, I think, for example, coming to IEEE is a great opportunity for us to connect with, for example, utility customers.
Right.
Understand where their demand curve is going, and at the same time connect with the equipment manufacturers that are our customers.
Right.
And really what we're talking about is what does the technology roadmap look like for our manufacturing customers? Because we want to be able to listen to that voice of the customer and help them with the development of their technology roadmap.
Excellent.
And so we need to be, in essence, partnering to understand where we're going together in the future. And if we can do that, then we can help them solve their problems. And I give you a concrete example. With supply chains the way they are today, and with electrical equipment life cycles being 20, 30 years at times, a lot of the designs of the electrical equipment were done in the 80s or the 90s based on materials and technology available then. What they're finding out is with the globalization of supply chains, what they specified back then is no longer available.
Yeah.
And in many cases, they've sole sourced themselves because their other 2 or 3 sources don't exist anymore.
Yeah,
they're no longer in business.
That's right.
And so that technology roadmap is really important so we can help them get the proper materials specified so we can solve their supply chain problems and mitigate the risk of what is happening in the world today.
If you were one of my suppliers, I would honor you guys. Help me make things better. Last series, I want to talk a little bit about a question I've got for you is IEEE itself. I know the family had to be involved in IEEE and
No doubt.
the commitment to your people to be involved in IEEE. What does IEEE mean to you? What is the value that IEEE brings to the gun family, and what do you bring to IEEE?
Well, first of all, we have a lot of engineers that are members of IEEE.
Right.
And the ongoing education, continuing education opportunities, I think, are outstanding. And for the IEEE to put together a show like this that brings together the industry, and the technical courses and the seminars that are available during a week like this, I think are really important for educating our next generation that are going to be serving this industry. And so I think IEEE does a great job as a society of putting out technical content to educate the next generation. And so for us, there's a lot of value in participating. And we do participate in various committees and encourage our younger engineers to get involved early in their career for continuing education.
That's where the thankless job is, the committees, where I have one committee that meets every Wednesday at 5 o'clock.
Right.
Every Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And my wife says, so why do you do that again? And I said, because I don't know how not to. So anyway.
Well, it's part of giving back. It's kind of a community service effort. And you know, just recently we were working on a NEMA committee establishing and updating a standard for what's called industrial laminates. And so this standard had not been updated in well over 20 years.
Yeah.
But somebody needed to step up and update that standard to bring it up to today's technology.
Right.
And as an industry leader, that's our responsibility to be a part of that and help educate engineers today on what these standards are.
Excellent.
That's part of our role.
Steve, thank you so much.
Alan,
has been
it was
a
great
pleasure.
talking to you.
Okay.
Thank you.